Hello, and welcome to Guy Aitchison's Reinventing the Tattoo community, where tattooers, apprentices, collectors, and the curious are encouraged to join in these live streams, real world events, share and inspire, and ultimately create better art and tattoos together. We beam out nearly every day, and with your help, have evolved into a quality network of amazing live and on demand tattoo and art shows that have all been receiving rave reviews. You are currently watching the Sunday afternoon drawing group with me, Jason Leeser, which is on every Sunday at 1 p.m. Artists, feel free to zoom in by clicking on the link in the events area of the Reinventing the Tattoo community. You may be beaming in from YouTube or Facebook. Maybe you're listening to the podcast, but you can always get the latest event schedule and notifications at the official Reinventing the Tattoo community. Found at both app stores, the Apple App Store and Google Play Store, or directly at community.reinventingthetattoo.com. All Reinventing the Tattoo Network shows, art jams, drawing groups, interviews, webinars, panels, seriously, all of it can be enjoyed on demand and found in the library, as well as the YouTube and podcast channels. There are countless tattoo and art rabbit holes for you to dive into. It's perfect for the front room of your studio or to entertain your tattoo clients while they're getting tattooed. In fact, we're actually beaming out 4 channels, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You can enter to win a goodie bag at reinventing247.com. In that goodie bag, there's all different types of samples and cartridge samples. I think we have some raw pigments in there. All different types of samples are coming in all the time. It's kind of a shot. You know, you never really know what you're going to get, but it's always worthwhile stuff. We have some weekly staple shows that we always encourage everyone to tune in for. Sundays at 1 p.m., with me, Jason Leeser. At 9 p.m. on Sundays, we have the Tattoo Weekly Show with Jake Meeks and Lauren Gregory and Gabe Ripley, where we go through and we discuss the weekly tattoo events and some other current events in the tattoo industry. Mondays at 9 a.m., we have the Early Bird Drawing Group to start your week off right. And at Mondays at 9 p.m., we have a subscribers-only drawing group with Guy Aitchison himself. Tuesday mornings at 10 a.m., we have a live drawing group with Ricardo Sertivant, where he will go through and he likes to teach on different art techniques, more advanced stuff such as oil painting, working more broad to specific, really trying to help you fine-tune your fine art skills. Wednesdays at 12 noon, we have the Tattoo Now show. Thursdays at 12 noon, we have the Tattoo Collecting podcast, where different tattoo collectors from all around the world will beam in and share some of the stories that they have about how they've collected their tattoos over the course of their lifetime. Thursdays at 10 a.m., we have a subscribers exclusive drawing group with Kira, where all skill levels are encouraged to join. It's on fundamentals. And we all know if we don't revisit our fundamentals every now and then, we start to lose it. We've got some upcoming special events with Fawn Baker, and we've got another live, I believe it's another live webcast with Mike DeVries coming up. We also have several real world events coming up that we always encourage people to attend if they choose to. For example, we've got the Paradise BYOB, which is coming up October 3rd through 6th of 2021. We'll be doing live webcast shows and panels. We do encourage people to show up in person if you want to, but we are going to be broadcasting everything out virtually as well. For those of you that may want to play it a little bit safer and maybe attend from a distance. November 12th through 14th, we have the Brussels Tattoo Convention with Nick Baxter, Ivana, and Gabe, who will all be doing seminars. We'll be having some live art jams and some subscriber exclusive meetups as well. February 5th through 6th, Reinventing the Tattoo will be coming at you live from the Red Tree Gallery and True Tube's headquarters in Columbus, Ohio, where we will be having some art jams, some seminars, and there's going to be a lot more information about that coming up. So please stay tuned. May 20th through 22nd, we have the Hell City Columbus Tattoo Convention that a lot of Reinventing the Tattoo track artists will be attending. July 8th through 10th, we have the Rock River Tattoo Art Expo, where once again, we'll be having some Reinventing the Tattoo artist meetups. It's going to be at an amazing venue this year. I really can't wait for it. July 29th through 31st of 2022, we have the Rubber City Tattoo Invitational in Akron, Ohio with Tony Urbanek, one of the master machine builders in the world. And it's official, mark your calendars now, October 20th through 23rd of next year, we have the official Paradise Tattoo Gathering coming back at you in full steam. I'd like to take a minute to go through and really go through and detail some of our sponsors. First and foremost is Interstate Ink in LA. You may know Church from his awesome custom sneakers. His studio is seeking residents and guests, all clean and sober. If you are in recovery, looking for a supporting studio, or if you know someone that needs one, please reach out to them. They're always willing to take in new people. You're going to be working along an incredible lineup of artists. And you can reach them on Instagram at Interstate Ink LA. Another great sponsor, another very, very awesome friend to this show is Inkjet Stencils, inkjetstencils.com, where you can literally go through and print out in photorealistic detail a picture to stencil on someone's skin. If you're really trying to up your stencil game and thus your tattoo game in general, you've got to look at Inkjet Stencils. It is a complete and total game changer. And they'll send you free samples. So make sure to check them out at inkjetstencils.com. Would like to say a very big thank you to Raw Pigments, rawpigments.co. They're tapping into the source. They're 100% acrylic free, vegan friendly. They're getting back to what it really means to be a tattoo pigment. WorldTattooEvents.com, where you can find all of the live listings of all of the real world tattoo events going on around you in any country of the world that they'll be being held. Definitely go through and check them out at worldtattooevents.com. Dermalyze, also known as D-Lyze Pro in the US. If you're really trying to make sure that everyone heals right, and if you're still using cling wrap, you need to step your game up there. Take a look at D-Lyze Pro. It's designed to heal your tattoos, to allow it to still breathe while it's healing itself in a more natural way. Tattoo Now, the leading technology for tattooers. It's the leading edge in SEO and professional development for tattoo artists of all levels, and they're now accepting clients. I would definitely jump on that before they get too busy, because it is a serious game changer. And of course, I'd like to say a very special thank you to the founder and inspiration of Reinventing the Tattoo, Guy Aitchison, who has guyaitchison.com, where you can go through and purchase the Biomech Encyclopedia, which is a serious collector's item. Tons of DVDs. He's got some machines, some original paintings, prints, and much, much more. Definitely go by, check out guyaitchison.com. It's going to blow your mind. Would also like to thank a couple of very special affiliates of the Reinventing the Tattoo community, the Fireside Tattoo Network with Jake Meeks. I've been a huge fan of the Fireside Network for quite a few years. I think I've listened to every show that they've put on so far, and definitely worth taking a look at. The Apprenticeship Diaries, if you are an apprentice or if you are an apprentice hopeful, you need to watch and listen to the Apprenticeship Diaries. It's going to open your mind to what to expect so that you don't walk into it with a completely blindsided by what different artists are looking for in an apprentice. And ecofriendlytattoosupplies.com, because hey, who doesn't like to save the environment? So welcome to the show. And yeah, let's get started. Looks like we have Faith with Faith with us today. Hey, Faith.
Hey.
Hey, how's it going?
It's going good. It's going good.
What do you got going on today?
Today's my day off, so I'm doing just home projects. I'm thinking I'm gonna start a painting on the canvas board back there.
Very nice, very nice. Yeah, it's one thing I'm actually going to be working on a canvas painting today too. I've been playing around with this new canvas coating. It's an absorbent ground, and it's completely awesome. I absolutely love it. It essentially turns your canvas into almost like a watercolor absorbent type surface. And it is just, I don't know. I've always thought it was a real big game changer for me.
What's it called?
But, you know, everyone's a little bit different. So, ooh. Where'd my video go? OBS, you failed me again. Good thing I have a backup. Cool. Yeah, any fun projects in the works? Anything else you got going on?
Just come back to me in a second, okay?
You got it.
I just got here or got home. Camera's malfunctioning.
Not a problem at all. We'll switch over to gallery view and check the Facebook comments and see what's going on over on Facebook. Also, everyone, always like to say, go through, drop us a note in one of the chat comments or, you know, just drop us a note. Let us know where you're tuning in from. We always like to get a better survey of, you know, where people are watching from, what you guys have going on, and all different types of stuff. And if, as always, if you ever have any questions, comments, or concerns, let us know. You know, we're here to help serve the tattoo community as a whole. And, you know, if we're not getting any feedback on that, then, you know, why are we still doing this? So, well, I mean, I know why I do it because, you know, I really enjoy doing this kind of stuff, but, you know, it's like, you know, come on, let's be a part of it. We just had someone say vegan friendly pigment. I'm preferring beef mix. Well, that's your own personal choice. No one's going to debate you on that. If that's what you like, by all means. You know, I'm a firm believer that animals have lives too, even though I myself am not a vegan. But, you know, go for it. If that's what you like and that's what you want, by all means. I'm actually going to go through and let me see if I can get my camera flipped around here real quick. I'm going to be working on this same painting I've been trying to work on and finish up for weeks. Let's see what we've got. So we can go on and switch. Oh. Why'd you turn off on me? Yay, there we go. Sorry, technical difficulties, folks. But that's to be expected, right? There we go. We'll just hide that little box there. Cool. So I've got, let's transition to this view so that this way you guys can, no, there we go. We'll turn that off. This way you guys can kind of see what I'm working on. This has been a work in progress for quite a few weeks. If you've bothered to tune in at all over the last few weeks, you'll have seen me working on this little by little. But it's funny because I actually took some advice from another artist friend of mine where they said, you know, I kept telling them like, oh man, you know, I just can't find the right color paint to do this with. And I'm tired of like trying to color match and mix it by hand. So they turned around and looked at me and they said, well, you've got some expired tattoo pigment sitting in your drawer, right? I was like, well, yeah. And they said, well, dude, just use that. So I've been playing around with it, and I've got some other like liquid acrylics and stuff like that, but you know, I don't think I have anything. Well, I've got some sticky notes that'll work. I'm going to be I'm sure some of you out there will be able to recognize the shape of the bottle, but just some old expired tattoo pigments that I don't really use anymore, mostly just because I've kind of switched brands. You know, where I do like certain brands that tend to be a little bit more on the thicker side, I've actually started to move towards brands that are a little bit more on the thinner viscosity side. It's just something that I've found to be helpful when I'm working. I find that my machines don't have to work quite as hard. So if my machines aren't working as hard, they're running a little bit more true. It's not going to wear, you know, I use a lot of rotaries, so it's not going to wear the motor out quite as quickly. So a lot of the older tattoo pigments that I have laying around that I don't really use, I'm just turning them into paints, you know. Granted, with some of the more old school, like powder-based pigments, it doesn't necessarily work quite as well. But a lot of the more popular brands generally tend to work pretty well as paints in a pinch. I know certain guys that I'm actually, a very good friend of mine named Dennis has actually entered some flash competitions at different shows and won. And people asked him what he was painting in the whole time. And he said, oh, I did this whole flash sheet here. You know, I was just using whatever tattoo pigments I had available. And they were blown away by that. So, but yeah, when in doubt, you know, if you've got any kind of expired paints or pigments laying around, pick them up, use them. Why not? Give it a shot. Wow, that almost rhymed a couple of times.
The white tattoo ink, it goes really well on top of like black and dark colors.
As far as painting goes, yeah.
That's why that's the one I use the most, is I have an old bottle of white. And sometimes if I want it to go on top, it like shinier than acrylic. So it kind of needs to pop.
Yeah, I always end up going back over as far as like, once I know everything is pretty much done, in order to get rid, because I'm not a big fan of a gloss reflective shine. Mm-hmm. And because I'm not a big fan of the reflective gloss, I always go back through after the fact and always put like a little bit of a matte medium over top of it, just to kind of bring that down a notch. Just because I don't like the way that with certain things, like especially if you're in like a museum or a gallery setting, if you've got some really bright, intense lights up above it, you always end up catching a shine or a reflection off of it, where it's like you're trying to like move around to move that angle of reflection of that light off of the painting so you can actually see the whole painting, right? So you can really take it all in. But if you've got a big, bright, white highlight being reflected from, you know, some type of a studio light up above it, to me, it just gets frustrating because you're not able to actually capture all of the painting or all of that work of art in, you know, just by looking at it. So I always like to try to matte things down a little bit more, and to that way people can really see it all as a whole, if that makes any sense.
That does make sense. I don't know. I never know which medium to buy. I kind of just bounce back and forth between matte and gloss as far as mediums go.
Well, I mean, the way that I see things, you can always go through after the fact and add like a clear gloss coat over top of it, or a clear gloss varnish over top of whatever it is that you're doing, you know, once the painting is done. So it doesn't really matter, you know, and same thing with like a matte medium, right? You can always go back through and matte it down if you don't like the way that the gloss shine looks. Some people like that like super wet look where you get this super intensive, like crazy white highlight and everything just looks like it's fluid. And I'm just not a big fan of that. You know, I like to be able to see everything all at once and to know that whoever is observing or viewing whatever painting I'm working on can really go through and see it to its fullest.
I was
I don't know.
thinking,
That's just me,
but
and I'm a bit weird. So I mean, that's just like I said, the way I like to do things.
I was never sure if I was supposed to do like a whole painting with one, or if I could like kind of bounce back and forth, because I kind of just, my mom always buys gloss and I always buy matte, so there's always both floating around. Just, but I really haven't noticed a huge difference. But
And there really isn't, as far as like what it looks like when you apply it. Because I mean, even more matte paints are pretty shiny because they're wet when you first put them on. But as they dry, that's where you're going to see the difference. And it does look a little bit, sometimes it can be a little bit more interesting if you have certain parts that are done with a gloss and certain parts that are done with a matte, so that way you
that's what
can kind of play off of that texture.
yeah, that's what I was trying to figure out, if I could make things pop out with the gloss and use the rest of that. But yeah,
Actually, I wonder if I have. Yep, 1 and 2. Cool.
so is that all tattoo ink or just parts of it?
Some of it is, some of it isn't. What I'm putting out now is just some Liquitex soft body.
Gotcha.
And I don't usually do a whole lot of acrylic painting. So I always end up having like leftover acrylics and stuff from whatever commission projects I'm working on.
My I did my first oil painting in like 6 years since switching to acrylic, like a couple months ago. That thing is shiny.
Yeah.
That thing is not shown compared to acrylic. That thing's like, it's got like a clear on it almost.
Yeah, they do tend to be very, very shiny. And I do know that that's why some artists will actually go through and varnish their paintings afterwards, just to help cut down on that like super bright reflection. I mean, me, I've always been one of those people where, it's like, hey, whatever floats your boat, go for it. Some people like gloss, some people like matte, but oils by nature, because of what they're made from, are generally very, very shiny.
And I started back in undergrad, or I guess high school. My first medium was black and white photography, where you can buy like the gloss paper and the matte paper and develop it and stuff. And I always like the high contrast matte is what I used to do.
Oh yeah.
So I've always liked matte. Just, it looks more like it's distracting, the glossy part.
It is. It absolutely is. So, and I'm a huge advocate of that as well. I completely and totally agree with you on that. 100%. Like if you're going to make really nice prints, it doesn't matter if they're photo prints. It doesn't matter if they are, if it's fine art prints, none of that really matters to me. But if you're going to make a really nice print, unless you're specifically looking for that kind of a gloss look, I always print on matte, always. Once again, because that shine can be really distracting. Some people like it, and that's cool, and it does work for certain subject matter. But I think matte for me is the way to go with it, just because it eliminates a lot of issues. If you're going to have it, it also depends on the lighting and the environment where it's going to be displayed. I think that has a lot to do with it too.
I usually do my prints at just like office stores for like $2 or $3 on the cardstock. So they don't always have matte, but if they have it, then I get that.
Yeah, I've actually been picking up and printing on a lot of Hahnemühle lately, Hahnemühle watercolor paper. They've got some Albrecht Dürer and like German etching paper, some William Turner etching paper, and it's expensive stuff, but it is so worth it. It's wonderful, wonderful stuff. Oh Lord, Ricardo.
That's the one that's like, does it have like a green cover on it? Is it that one?
It's so let me see if I've got any of it handy.
Yeah,
yeah, so it's like a silver box. Don't know how well you
Gotcha.
can see that.
Oh no, I've never seen that before.
Yeah, this is matte fine art inkjet paper from Hahnemühle. I think I'm pronouncing that right. It's probably wrong. But
You print those with
they've
your
got,
printer at home?
yeah, I've got a very nice Epson SureColor P800, large format, professional photo printer.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
Yeah, I found it over quarantine. Someone was selling it for half price on Facebook Marketplace.
Gotcha.
And not only did they sell it to me for half price, I mean, it was still very expensive as far as a printer goes, but they also gave me, along with it, about $500 worth of printing paper.
That's pretty.
And like really nice printing paper is crazy expensive. And they were just like, yeah, here, you can have all this stuff too. And I'm like, wait, what? All right. Yeah, please. Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
I almost started block printing like a month or two ago, but I think we talked about it last week. I've just been staring it down because I figured I could do a limited run of like 10 of them, play with the values and everything. So I need to just do it and stop thinking about it.
Yep. When in doubt, stop thinking and do it. You know, we can sit down and we can think about things all day long, you know, just like with tattoos, right? We can sit down and overanalyze and overthink, okay, placement, subject matter, how's this going to look? How's that going to look? We can spend our whole lives just thinking about one design. We have to get to a point in time where we just sit down and we say, okay, I'm doing it. This is what I'm doing. Boom. At least that's my thought.
It feels like a commitment, you know? Like
Well,
once
it
I do
is.
it might take over my life. That's what happens sometimes.
Oh, yeah, that's called being an artist.
Exactly.
Right? You get immersed into some of these different projects, and then you turn around like years later and you're like, wow, that started out as just a really, really small project. And it's consumed the past 3 years of my life. But that's just kind of the way things go sometimes. You know, we find something that we really enjoy doing. Or we find something very, very challenging and we just don't want to stop doing it. At least that's what I've picked up on.
Yeah, I used to tell people that large paintings ruined my life. But it's a joke. But yeah, they consume like everything, and like I'll be go out somewhere and I'm sitting there on my phone, like staring at it, trying to figure out what to do. It just becomes like obsession, whatever piece I'm working on.
Right.
Or whatever tattoo I'm designing, or like that, whatever you call it when you're like actually making art. Is there like a word for that? Like the art mind or something?
I mean, different people call it different things. I just call it life. Just because like that's where, I mean, yeah, it gets to a point where I have to force myself to adult, right? And to pay the bills and to do the laundry and I have to force myself to do that, because if I didn't, I would literally just paint and draw all day, every day, and completely and totally ignore life. Right. So that's why I just call that life, because I'm in that perpetual state all the time. Ricardo knows this. He's seen me. That looks really delicious, Ricardo. Did you get me one?
No, man, this is like the heel of the loaf of bread. So I got like one piece of PB&J.
A one piece of bread, PB&J?
You got it. You just fold it over like a taco, you know what I mean?
Well, I mean, yeah. I've done that plenty of times.
Mm-hmm. I'll be right back.
Yep. Uh-oh. I think Ricardo's upset that I called him out while he was snacking.
It happens.
Yeah. That's why I always try to make sure that I have something to eat before I get onto camera, because otherwise it's just no good. Also, I wanted to to tell anyone that might be watching from the New England area of the US, please be safe. Seriously, I got a text from a friend of mine that lives in Western Mass this morning. And they were saying that they already started to get some flooding and that things are really starting to go downhill quickly.
Schedule for your parents to arrive.
So please stay safe.
I went through this permanent makeup training program.
How'd that go?
It went well. It took a lot of the fear I had away in regards to it. So I get to do like hands-on training. So I got to do a couple tattoos. The eye one's intense.
Oh, I can imagine.
But they're like looking up at you the whole time. You know what I mean? I don't know.
Yeah, but I mean, I can only assume, granted, I don't do any kind of PMU stuff. That's a whole nother world of difficulty that I have yet to explore. But I can only imagine it's like doing any other kind of tattoo where after a while, it just kind of loses its novelty. And you're like, oh, okay, yeah, go ahead. Stare at me all you want. It doesn't really matter. I mean, I'm here to do a job.
I think I was like the other three people in the class, they weren't tattoo artists. And I was pretty chill about the whole thing, but they were like bouncing off the walls. It's got to be hard to go straight into that. But
oh, yeah. I mean, think about when you first started to actually tattoo people, right? Kind of intimidating.
Yeah, that's what I mean. That's what I mean. Yeah. So I think I took it in stride. But, yeah, I'm getting kind of, like you just said, I didn't realize how big that stuff has gotten. Do you know what I mean? The engine, I know, huge. It's like the little sister of the tattoo industry that's going.
Yeah, that
like
grew up
you know?
overnight.
Yeah.
And became way more lucrative than anything that we had ever thought it would be.
And the like the online education and everything, like that stuff's pretty legit. Like it's like the programs and stuff, like coming out of Europe and everything. That's cool.
For
Expensive,
PMU,
cool. Just as far as all the videos out there and stuff with all different languages for learning it. Yeah. I don't know. I just entered this world like a week ago. So it's no, it's very similar to, I guess, to the tattoo industry.
yeah, but I don't know. To me, it's still very, very different because it involves having a completely different type of artistic skill set, right? Where being a tattoo artist, we don't necessarily have to know about anatomical symmetry, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
You know, so like if you're working with permanent makeup and say you're doing blush on someone's cheek, right? Number one, you have to understand your skin tones. You have to understand what kind of look they're trying to achieve, be able to mix up very specific, very subtle tones that maybe are just slightly more red or orange, or maybe they've got a slight bit more of like a cooler brown tone in there. You know, so you have to be able to mix these very fractionally different tones and then make sure that you have the proper symmetry for the correct contour, for, you know, the correct placement of where you want that kind of blush to go. Like it's makeup is a whole world of shit that I can't even begin to imagine.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I'm ready.
What's up?
I don't know. For some reason, I don't know. It's just not. It doesn't intimidate me. Now that I've done a couple of them, or like just. I think it's just because I've been tattooing for so long.
Well, and once you get over that hump and that initial intimidation, and I think you hit the nail on the head there. Once you, like, being tattooers, we're used to dealing with making these kinds of permanent decisions that we know are going to affect the way that people are viewed for the rest of their lives, right? So we're already kind of used to that.
Yeah.
Other people might be freaking out a bit more, right? But we're sitting back and we're like, yeah, well, whatever. Like it.
It's
No
my
pressure.
first time tattooing a face like at all. I've never done like a regular tattoo on a face or anything. I'm trying to knock off every body part.
Right?
I think I've got like the under boob and the butt to do. And I think that's it. I've never done like the soles or the palms, inside ones. I've
Yeah,
never
I
done the
tattooed
soles.
someone's palm before, and that was just like a nightmare for them. And it was a nightmare for me too, because like your natural inclination, when you press down in the middle of your hand, and you'll notice this from birth, especially with infants, if you press in the middle of your hand, your natural reaction is to curl your hand in.
Yeah, I can see that already.
So if you have to like force those fingers down to keep them and they're fighting you the whole time, unless they're like really, really relaxed,
My
which
friend,
some people are, some people do it.
friend Lauren did the bottom of this guy's feet once because he lost a bet. So he came in and he got, I forget what he got on the bottom of his feet, but that's got to be a hard heal. That's just
Yeah,
like,
so bottoms of the feet are like a weird place for me ethically.
okay.
Because we know as tattooers that tattoo is not really going to last very long.
Right.
We know that, right? Because we know that anytime we tattoo even close to the sole of the foot, that the longevity of that isn't really going to be quite the same as if we were to tattoo, say, the outside of the forearm.
It was more of a like an entertainment value tattoo, I
Right,
guess.
right. And that, you know, as long as people go into it with like that kind of a mindset,
Yeah.
cool, right? Fine, whatever. Like if you've got money to burn and you want that done and you know it's not really going to last, all right, you know, but there are people out there that, you know, want to get the soles of their feet done. And it's like, but tattooing is a very long-term thing.
Yeah.
And if you're really trying to go for more of a long-term tattoo, that's definitely one of the areas that I won't do. Right.
I
I don't know. Maybe I just think about it a little bit too much, but like I've actually turned people down from getting tattoos on the bottoms of their feet before.
Yeah, I definitely probably would not do that either. It's just
Right.
popped up in my head, but she works in Jensen, like right at the main circle where everyone comes in. So it's like a very just more it's a walk-in shop, you know what I mean? Like there's just tons of traffic. So what was I gonna say?
Yeah, I kind of like working in walk-in studios sometimes.
Sometimes it's good.
I think it's fun, you know, to kind of get back to your roots, get back to your basics. You know, and there's always that constant challenge of, all right, well, I have no idea what's going to walk through the door next. So let me just kind of prepare myself.
It's like art rushing roulette. That's how I say what I call it. Yeah, no, walk-ins are fun. Sometimes something really cool comes in, and then a couple will come in. Or, like I'm definitely down with the walk-ins. I've just never worked in one that was busy enough that they get like just all kinds of crazy stuff. You know what I mean?
Oh, I used to work in one that was very, very busy, but it was like, it was one of those older, like biker kind of studios.
Okay.
And it was just, you never knew what was walking through the door. You never did. I mean,
Actually,
there were all kinds of like really crazy people that used to come through there.
we're switching locations in about, I guess, 3 or 4 weeks now. And it's going to be a much more of like a walk-in type shop vibe. Right now we're tucked away back in this old shopping center, and then we're moving to like the main street in Port St. Lucie.
There you go.
We're over by 95, and we're going from 2 artists and an apprentice to 5 artists.
Nice.
So it's gonna be crazy though. I'm nervous. I think it's just basic anxiety. I don't think it's. I don't know.
Well, I mean, a lot of it, and this I'm a huge advocate of. It's something that I've picked up along the way. I didn't really believe in it when I first started tattooing, but the more and more I've been in this industry, the more and more I wouldn't be where I am today without it. You kind of have to have that kind of an experience because it really helps you in the long run. Right?
I wasn't
I mean,
there
yeah.
long. Okay.
I was going to say
I
there
can't
are a
really
lot
hear
of
you.
people. Gabe, we can hear you clearly.
I was at a walk-in shop for like 3 weeks last December. And it was just a completely different vibe. But I'm just I'm a lot better than I was back then, so I think it'll be good.
Yeah, it's like I still to this day, I have no hesitations taking walk-ups. In fact, I like to leave time for that at tattoo conventions. You know, in any show that I work at, I always like to leave time for those new walk-in clients. And it's something that I think a lot of people forget is that you might do one walk-up tattoo or walk-in tattoo if you're at, you know, a studio. You might do one walk-in tattoo, but that's how you're going to build a hardcore clientele base is by doing those walk-ins. You know, people can advertise all they want. They can be on social media all they want. But if you can't grow your business organically through word of mouth, which is the way that this industry was founded for, you know, decades, if you can't grow your business in that kind of a manner, then that's your hardcore group of people that's no longer there, right? Like I've got clients of mine that I've been tattooing for 10 plus years. They are the ones that helped sustained me after the pandemic, right? After quarantine. They were the ones that called me and said, "Hey, are you doing okay?" Right? Like I can prepay for a tattoo now and put a deposit down on it if you want me to, just so that I know you can pay your bills, you know, but I'm just checking in on it, right? And like you might have 12,000 Instagram followers, you might get tons of clients off of TikTok.
It is on, yes.
But none of them are going to follow up with you after quarantine and say, "Hey, are you okay?" Right?
Yeah, a lot, if not all of my clients are, not all of them, but a lot of them are from walk-ins. They became my client, so I'm not knocking it. I just meant as far as, I guess, the quantity. Do you know what I mean? Like where it's like, that's all I would get to do every day. I don't want it to be like that, but as long as there's still time for, I don't know, it's like a balancing act.
It is. It really is. You know, and trust me, you're not the only one that struggles with that as well. Like it's something I struggled with for a very long time, was trying to find that balance between, okay, I really want to work on larger scale, more involved stuff, but at the same time, I still kind of enjoy doing the smaller walk-in stuff. So where do I find that balance, right? Where do I go through and how can I find the balance between the stuff that I want to do and the stuff that I need to do?
For me right now, the balancing act is the thing that's taking the hit is the design time and drawing time for the larger pieces. I feel like I keep ending up like kind of like night before cramming for something I was supposed to be working on. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Does that make sense? So that's
It
what I'm
does.
really trying to do is to not get the design time to suffer. Or just like I have a hard time saying no because like you want money coming in, you want clients to be happy. So I have a hard time being like, I can't do that right now. I have to draw.
Right.
You know what I mean? But it's
yeah, it's not easy. And especially when you know that you get a client that comes in, they want something really involved and really elaborate.
yeah.
You know, and I think this is why a lot of like old schoolers and a lot of guys that have been around and been doing it for so long will try to discourage people that haven't been doing it for 15 plus years from doing anything super crazy big, just because they know how much time is involved in drawing it. And they know how much time is involved in even just getting it ready to be stenciled. You know, and they want them to focus on quality of the tattoos that they are doing over, the size of the tattoo, quality over quantity. And, they have that experience and they know how long it's going to take for, so-and-so who they work with to get something drawn, set, and ready, because they don't know the little tricks of working large scale, right? And there are certain little tricks that you can utilize that make working in much larger scale very, very simple, and it really speeds up the time in general. But they're little tricks that are usually learned through experience over time.
Yeah, I remember learning that lesson.
Yeah.
A good way to recycle paper, Gabe.
It's something that we all struggle with after a while, especially in like the first 10 years of tattooing.
Again.
We always struggle with it. And I mean, there are still times that I struggle with it. So
I have to explain to the client like how like a half inch or an inch difference, and it's like that's like an extra hour at a certain point. Like for me, just like if you go past palm size, I'm still like I'm trying not to go too big even now.
yeah,
But
it's the whole trick is work small, work it till it's perfect. And then once you can do that successfully time and time again, then you start moving a little bit bigger.
So what did you mean by the tricks? You just talking about like larger needles or larger, or just
Well, I mean, that's one thing, obviously. Think about it like this, right? You've got a 30-foot wall in front of you that you need to completely cover with paint. Are you going to use a 2-inch wide brush? No, exactly. You're going to use a huge paint roller.
Oh, yeah, I got that.
Maybe you're going to call in a few friends to come and help you with their paint rollers too. And you can cover a 30-foot wall pretty quick.
It's true.
So sometimes you need a little bit of a hand. Larger groupings are definitely something that can help.
Maybe simplifying designs. Maybe
simplifying designs is always a key thing, right? That's something that, people have been using for many, many years. Even just cutting your drawing time down is something that can be changed just by altering the size at which you draw. Right? Because if you have to fill up a little canvas on your iPad that's only 2 inches by 4 inches, right? But that's ultimately going to be a full sleeve, you're forced to work a lot bigger and a lot more broad. Right? But you only have to fill in 2 inches by 4 inches.
Right.
So, I mean, I don't know about you, but I can draw in a 2-inch by 4-inch square and fill up the whole square pretty quick.
Yeah,
definitely.
I
just think
but
it's
then
remarkable
when you translate that to like an actual printed design, it's already there. All you have to do is blow up the scale.
I feel like I need I call it when like you're drawing and you kind of get lost like in the artwork. I call it going down the rabbit hole.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like sometimes I go off on these tangents and you don't know how long they take. It's like I need like a buzzer or something that will bring me back to reality.
Well, you have a smartphone, right?
That's true. That's like maybe I should start doing like
set up a timer.
And if it's not working, go a different direction. Like that kind of thing. Something like that.
Limit yourself to 30 minutes per concept. Because I draw pretty slowly. I know this. Ricardo can vouch for that. Like I'm as slow as a slug. I am, but I try to focus on high precision. Ricardo will sit there and he'll bust out like a master oil painting in like 20 minutes. In 20 minutes, I might have covered an inch by inch square. So, I mean, that's just the rate at which he works. I take a little bit longer to get my stuff drawn out. There's nothing wrong with that, but I found little tricks like setting a timer, working on something for 30 minutes at a time, which is what my time limit is. Some people like Ricardo may cut it down to like 10 minutes, where he can go through and sketch out a draft of a design in 10 minutes flat. And he knows that. Me, it's going to take me at least 30 minutes to just get a concept down. Right. So I'll block out, say, 2 or 3 hours, and I'll just work on 30-minute sketches just to get ideas and concepts down, to figure out that flow, structure, form, fit, to figure out my background and foreground. If I really like the way one of the sketches is going, great. For the next 30 minutes, I'll just work on detailing,
Exactly.
you know, or I'll move on to the next concept, but I can always come back to that concept that I really liked.
I think I just need to schedule more design time. Just I end up doing it like I wake up at really early or I stay up late and I end up being tired just because I don't know why, but I've never I honestly been this busy, so I'm just trying to cope with it, I guess. And we're about to get busier, so that's why I'm nervous.
Yep. Well, a lot of that is, and this is something that I try to talk to everyone about. It's something that I ask every tattooer that I ever meet. How do you do it? How do you balance your time?
How do I
Because
do it?
that's the biggest problem that all tattooers face. It's not lower back pain. It's not hand fatigue. It's not, dietary or what. It's how do you balance your time?
Stop sleeping.
I hear meth works well.
Jeez.
Joking. Don't do meth.
Yeah, definitely don't do that.
Yeah, no.
Definitely.
I'm burning the candle at both ends a little bit.
Yeah. And trust me,
I'm
Faith,
guilty
I
of that
used to
too.
work 2 full-time jobs, 80 hours a week.
Gotcha.
Trust me, I understand what it's like to burn the candle at both ends. I do.
Both
And
are big, right?
it's not fun and it takes a physical toll on you. If you don't check yourself after a while, it is going to beat you down and break you apart faster than you can realize it. So, Ricardo, you were trying to jump in and say a couple of things?
Can you hear the lawnmower? I'm outside.
Yeah, your audio is terrible, bud.
All right, we go outside. I think you just stopped. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
That's better.
Okay. All right, cool. This lawnmower season. Oh, no, he's gonna start again. I'll go inside. I was saying that the balance of time is hard. I'm guilty of it too. I usually sleep on average about 3 or 4 hours a night, and it catches up to you after a little while.
Yeah, but Ricardo, you also smoke a copious amount of
I
crack
usually
cocaine.
end up having to do, but I do find myself being pretty productive though.
Yeah. Now,
And,
now, could you imagine how productive you would be if you didn't smoke a lot of crack cocaine?
Yes.
No, I'm just joking. Don't smoke crack, everyone. Don't smoke crack. Crack is bad.
Don't do drugs. Don't do drugs.
No, but it's, I strive to be at the point at which you're at, Ricardo, where, yeah, you might not sleep a whole lot, but you are one of the most productive people I have ever met in my life.
Oh man, you flatter me, Jason. I appreciate that. Thank you.
I'm not trying to flatter you. I'm just being honest. Like, you are a workhorse and a half, right?
That just, mm-hmm.
You
Thank
get
you, man.
more accomplished in one 24-hour period of time than I think most people actually realize.
Trying. I got a lot of catching up to do. Being around you guys, so amazing to see all. And then you just get like inspired, you know what I mean? And you're like, you don't want to fucking miss that wave, you know? That's the coolest part is you catch that wind of inspiration. It's like, oh, time to jump on the ball again.
Right.
And if I don't get on it, then I'm gonna miss it. That's the way I feel. So I know what you're saying, Faith and Jason. Like I get it. Like it's hard to find that balance, but yeah, man, you gotta kind of like prioritize sometimes. You gotta prioritize. If I stay up real late working on this, I'm just gonna end up sleeping in later tomorrow and missing out on other things. So There has to be that point where you gotta set it down and walk away and just literally, because if I have a painting in my shop or something that I've been working on and it's facing me when I walk in, I stop everything and I'll just drop everything where I'm standing and just stare at it. I'm like, oh shit, I see all these things wrong with it. I'm gonna go fix it right now. And so you gotta like, I understand now why people outside of unveiling a painting to a client or, you know, showing it in a show, I understand now why artists will put like, you know, sheets over their work or
Yeah.
turn it around or turn it away from them. You know what I mean? Because like you have to do other things. And like Jason was saying, I agree with it completely, man. Like I spent the better part of the morning cleaning up my apartment today, and because I've been traveling so much and everything was just kind of sat down where it landed. And I'm not like that. Usually everything's got to have a home. You know what I mean? And so you gotta partition out that time for sure, man. And sometimes just setting things down and walking away from it for a little bit is the best way to do it. And just realizing that benefits what it is that you're so eager to accomplish, which is just like that goal of art, like just not necessarily being better, just creating. You know what I mean? Just creating as much as possible. So it's a give and take, and if you can give in to the resting, it'll benefit your productivity and your creativity for sure.
Yeah, I'm definitely not trying to not sleep. It's
Yeah.
just that I go down and then I wake up and I go again. But
Yeah.
I don't know, I like drawing really early. I don't know why. Some people like to stay up late and draw. I just like getting up when no one's up and drawing or making art. And I just feel like it's like more calm. You know what I mean? Like you can focus, at least for me.
Well, there's a creation in that time of day. You know what I mean? There's like that waking up from the night, that death of the other day, the death of the day before. Like the dawn is coming on you and it starts to wake up. Everything's starting to come to life. There's an energy with that. You know what I mean? I think anyway, and like it definitely is influencing for sure. And I feel the same way. I get up, go to the gym first thing in the morning. By the time I get home, it's like, okay, it's time to do my shit now. Like draw, paint, tattoo. Try to be as cohesive as I can whenever I'm talking to clients about ideas. So
Every day,
yeah.
Every day when I wake up, like within like 2 minutes, I'm on the couch laying down drawing. You know,
Yeah.
I just come out of my bedroom, lay right here, and start drawing. That's how I wake up.
Yeah. You know,
Almost like
it's funny that.
almost like
Go ahead.
meditating. That's
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's exactly it, and that's cool as fuck that you can say that because, like, dude, if that's what drawing is for you, like where it calms you down and it puts you at peace, that's incredible. That's awesome. A lot of people, you know, can get pretty stressed out about it. You know what I mean? And if it's a beneficial thing for you and you can meditate and stuff like that, be still while you do it. That's awesome. Like, let me ask you guys a question, both of you guys. Whenever
37.
42 is the answer to the universe.
Yes.
Whenever you guys are drawing, painting, or tattooing, do you look up at the clock or something like that and go, holy crap, 6 hours has gone by? What
Every
the
single
hell?
time.
Yeah. Isn't that awesome?
I've
some
actually
people
gotten
would
to the
say-
point where I have to set an alarm on my phone because I've been trying to take more breaks in the middle of like longer sessions just so that my eye strain doesn't get quite as bad. Because the last time I went to the optometrist, you know, to get my eyes checked, they had noticed that, you know, in the past 12 years, you know, my eye strain stayed kind of bad, but it wasn't really that bad. But apparently over this past year where I've really just been digging into and zoning in to these larger scale projects, apparently my eyes have just progressively started to get worse. So I was talking to them about it and they said, well, one thing you can do to really help with that is to go through and start giving your eyes a break, start taking more breaks when you're working on these larger pieces to allow your eyes to focus on something that isn't 18 inches in front of you. Right. And so I've been trying to do that a lot more often. So there are times when I will actually set an alarm on my phone now just to get up and walk around and stretch my eyes out a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, it's great. And I would love to be able to sit down and just work on one piece for 6 hours without any breaks, you know, without anything else. I would love to be able to do that, but I know that it's not going to be beneficial to me in the long run.
Right.
So I really had to start paying attention to that a little bit more.
Yeah.
But time management is a serious thing. And it's not
Absolutely.
something I'm very good at.
That makes two of us, my man.
Because I'm kind of like you, Ricardo. I'll walk into a room and I'll be like, oh man, I should really do that. And then I do it. And it's like, well, so much for doing everything else that I said I was trying to do.
Yeah. Yeah. And then you got to think about all the time you spend on like social media, you know what I mean? All these givens that we take for granted sometimes that, like, man, I don't know about you guys, but I can get on the social media and like 30 minutes will go by, 40 minutes will go by. Like, holy shit.
That's why I stay away from it as much as I can. If
Likewise.
you guys have both noticed, I rarely put anything up on social media because like the only times I really go on it is to answer messages and emails and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Other than that, I found it to be such a drain on my time. And I have got a lot of things going on in my life. I can't afford to really waste time like that. Not that being on social media is a waste of time. It's not. I mean, technically speaking, the Reinventing the Tattoo app and community is, for lack of a better term, a type of social media.
But we're looking to educate
social
you.
media is a waste, but I've got so many things going on in my life that every minute counts, right? So I really have to be conscious of that, you know, and so that's why I try to avoid going on it unless I have to.
One thing I want to say about the whole meditation thing, I have like chronic pain in my shoulders, and the only time it doesn't hurt or that I'm not aware of it is when I'm making art. I don't know if anyone's ever had that experience. Where it's just like my mind, it's the only time my mind isn't like, it's like I'm so focused on what's outside myself that it just doesn't bother me. Because normally I'll be like rubbing my shoulders and stuff like that, but then when I'm tattooing or whatever, it goes away.
Well, it's because you're clearing your mind, right? You're forcing yourself to focus on only one thing, and that is that tattoo, right? And when you do that, you can, you know, it's something that Ricardo and I were talking to our one client, Ruben, about. You know, during that first session, it's like clear your mind, focus on your breathing, put your mind somewhere else, and you can get through just about anything you could ever imagine, right? Because the human mind is a really incredible tool if you know how to use it correctly, right? So, I mean, a lot of it, in a sense, that's what I think you're trying to say is that like, when you get zoned into that tattoo, when you fall down that kind of a rabbit hole, you know, you are only focusing on that tattoo at that point in time and nothing else really exists. Right? Am I correct?
Essentially, yeah, essentially.
So I try to do the same thing all the time with meditation, where I'll sit down and I'll take 30 minutes and I'll just focus on my breathing and just sit down. I'll put on some relaxing, very calm, very slow music, and I'll just sit and just focus on my breathing and just clear my mind. And it helps unbelievably reduce stress in my life.
I've tried it off and on over the years. Sometimes I can get it to work, sometimes not so much. But I don't know, I have a personality that's go, go, go all the time, kind of hyperactivity, push the ball forward, always, always. So like the rabbit in Wonderland, I guess.
Right. Which I mean is pretty standard.
It's
You know, that's standard for people that are trying to achieve great things. You know, and that's what I think all three of us really have in common is we're all trying to work towards achieving great things. It's common. But much like when you start working on a tattoo, try to only focus on your breathing, right? Try to focus on the length and duration of each breath, the rhythm that you're creating when you're breathing, and allow that to really take over your conscious thought. Think of that as the only thing that matters at that point in time, just like a tattoo that you're doing, right? When you're working on a tattoo, that's all that exists in that one point in time, right? And if you apply that to your breathing, you would be surprised at how quickly time will actually go by just doing that.
yeah, I have. Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, it's all you, girl. Go ahead.
I have this sheet that I give to people who I'm helping who just want to learn. It's called the ink flow prayer.
Mm-hmm.
And it has like 8 or 9 steps of just things that can go wrong. You know, like basically if you fix one of these things is the problem. And one of them on there is don't forget to breathe.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Like if your lines are going in shaky or it's not working, just sometimes taking a breath allows me to kind of do that.
Pretty awesome.
I also find that loosening up your grip on your machine has a wonderful effect if you're trying to get rid of shaky lines.
Yeah.
A lot of people, especially when they first start out, and I know for a fact I was guilty of this for 7-8 years, you know, so not a very short duration of time, but I know for a 100% fact. What happened? Did it overheat? No.
Technical
Did I just
difficulty.
not push the right button. There we go. There we go. But I was guilty of it for many, many years, and that was putting the death grip on my machines, right?
Mm-hmm.
Granted, this was back when coils were a big thing, and you know, everyone was using these super heavy like coil machines, which I still like to use every now and then. Only I use them with cartridges, which apparently is a big no-no. But I enjoy it, so whatever. But it's something that, you know, I was definitely guilty of. I used to put the death grip on those things, right? And I would squeeze the ever-living crap out of the grip. And, you know, one thing I noticed was that when I was more relaxed with my grip on the machine itself, it was incredible how straight my lines became.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because you're not, you know, a lot of times, like if you're squeezing down so hard, you can squeeze so hard that your hand will shake, right? Just from the tension in your muscles. So just by eliminating that muscle tension really helped eliminate a lot of that like shakiness.
Definitely agree with that.
You know, I also found a trick where if you wrap a couple of paper towels around the grip, that also really helps.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
I have a
Absorbs
friend,
some of that vibration.
yeah, it provides a little bit of a cushion. So we do have a couple of people that made some comments on the Facebook. Shivoham, I think I'm pronouncing that correctly, said, what about full neck tattoo with service industry? I think it all depends on the industry, to be honest with you. Different tattooing technically could be considered a customer service industry. So, you know, it kind of depends on your industry there. And it also depends on the company you work for, right?
Or
Certain
the city
companies
you're
still
in.
have tattoo policies that they like to invoke because they don't feel that it presents a type of professional appearance, which I don't necessarily agree with, but I understand where they're coming from at the same time. And here's why, right? Hypothetical situation, Ricardo.
Yeah.
You're the sole judge of this decision. You are a hiring manager for a Fortune 500 company. You are going to hire a client for a sales position. There are two applicants that are both perfectly equally qualified. Resumes are almost identical. They've got both the same job experience. They've got, very identical personal interviews. The difference is this. You have one person that has, say full sleeves and a neck and a throat piece. They're done very professionally. They can tell that, whoever got them done spent a lot of time and a lot of money getting them done. Right. And they are absolutely drop dead gorgeous works of art.
Mm-hmm.
The other potential employee doesn't necessarily have the best work. A lot of the stuff that they got done when they were much, much younger. And they got a lot of it done by people that were not professional, did not have a clue what they were doing. And a lot of the work just doesn't look good at all. Some of it's, pretty dark and evil, where both people might have tattoos. How would the subject matter and the quality of the tattoos reflect on you if you were a hiring manager?
The subject matter for sure, right? The subject matter will have a lot to do with it. The quality of the work will probably have a lot to do with it too, to be honest with you, which is unfortunate. But that's coming from a biased opinion of my own already, with being a tattoo artist.
Now, what kind of a reason would you give for hiring, say, the person with better tattoos over the person with worse tattoos? Right?
What do you mean?
Could you objectively determine who gets that job? Because they both have tattoos. Ones look a little bit better than the others, but isn't that more subjective than objective?
Yeah, I would say so.
And because it's subjective, how can you apply that same rule to, say, all candidates?
Good question, man.
Because now you're enforcing your subjective opinion on what looks good, what doesn't look good, and how things are going to impact in that job. When, maybe the person that doesn't have the tattoos that look quite as good, maybe it was their nephew that passed away that did all of them. So they've got a lot more deep sentimental meaning. But depending on the job that you're getting hired for, maybe that doesn't necessarily apply, right? Maybe you're being hired for a sales position where your job is to represent the company and sell a product, right? Well, yeah, it's nice to go through and have conversation pieces, because studies have shown that those are actually very in demand, and it can oftentimes draw a very nice common ground between salesperson and potential client.
Right.
So that's, studies have shown that. Cool. But if you can't make an objective statement or an objective rule, because you're essentially determining things based on a subjective opinion, and everyone's subjective opinion is different, right?
Yeah.
But if you're trying to create a policy or a rule or abide by a guideline that applies to every candidate, regardless of where they come from, who they are, what's going on, could you see how that would affect how someone gets hired?
Absolutely.
You know, and this is, once again, my personal opinion. So Claudio made a comment and said, I asked tattoo shop if they could go over my tattoo to make it look better. They said, no, it's too dark. Thought, really? Well, I mean, without seeing the tattoo, it's kind of hard to comment on that. But I mean, it's hard to go darker or better if it's already pretty dark to begin with. So pushing and pulling your contrast, depending on what the subject matter is, what the design looks like, you know, it's kind of hard to make that kind of a determination without actually seeing anything. So can't really help you out there. Sorry, bud. Don't know if we have anyone else. I'm trying to keep up with all the chat boxes and windows, but I don't really see too many other people making comments. So
I was trying to put that Inkflow prayer on my profile. I can figure it out though. Is there like a place where we can post stuff like in our profile, or is it you have to post it to one of the boards?
one of the boards is recommended, regardless of which board it is.
I posted.
But yeah,
behind-
that's what a lot of people are doing.
Is there any particular one for just information?
I
Like just general, like.
mean, I think the community group has
Okay.
more or less like a general tab. I mean, this is definitely more of a question for Gabe as far
I
as
was
where
trying
something
to-
like that would go.
I was trying to stick it somewhere so anyone watching this would be able to look at it. Was what I was gonna try and do. Figure it out.
I mean, in the public group, there's just a general community group section that could work.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, outside of the general community group, I couldn't tell you.
Excuse me.
Thanks.
Hey, what's everybody working on today?
The same painting I've been trying to work on for the past couple of weeks. And I think I'm getting to
Gotcha.
the point where I should probably just leave it alone, but I'm not going to.
Leave it alone.
Because that's
it's
who I
almost
am and
finished to
that's
me.
what I do.
That's just what I do.
I do that voodoo that I do so well. Cool.
I'm working on this piece still. I think I'm getting closer to having a finished thing going on. I don't know if you can see. Let me move. There you go. Can you
Oh
see that?
yeah, dude.
Let me see. Let me shrink that down a little bit.
Let me spotlight you.
Get out of the light there.
Oh damn, dude, that's awesome.
Let me get out of the light here. Hold on 1 second. I'm sorry, Jason.
Extreme close up.
Hang on 1 second. Get this ugly mug out of the picture. All right, there you go. It's a little bit better.
Oh man, I love those accents of the berries and the leaves.
Yeah,
That's tight.
thank you. Yeah, it needed something besides it just floating. I'm starting to tighten some things up and put some focal points on, the face and everything like that. And starting to go through and define some of the hair a little bit more.
Right
This is
on.
based off of one of the Monday night drawings for anybody who doesn't know, with Guy Aitchison, which are amazing. But yeah, I think it's getting closer to being done for a print here pretty soon. So
Well, let me know, man. I already got the paper in for you.
I will do. I will be doing that. Yeah. So you digging the berries, you digging the leaves and everything like that too?
Dude, it's got a very wintry kind of vibe.
Yeah. Yeah, I noticed that.
You know, I really like it. I think it's because it's holly berries and holly. Well, they're not really holly leaves, but those berries that are in there, man, definitely give it the berries and the very cool greens that you have in there
Mhm.
definitely give it that kind of like holiday-esque vibe.
Hmm.
Personal opinion, of course, but
Yeah, for sure. It'll be called a Merry Berry Christmas.
a Merry Christmas.
A Berry Berry Christmas. Rock and roll. All right.
Is that like a
Take this.
very berry white Christmas?
Yeah, for sure. You can spotlight me now. You don't mind?
Okay.
Because I'm
sorry
all
about
like,
that.
hey.
I get
guys, what's
distracted
up?
and things happen.
Oh, good. Thank you.
Cool.
Cool. I'm glad
Right.
you dig it.
How big were you thinking about going with the print?
Oh, I don't know. I just an 8 by 12, or maybe, I don't know. What do you think? A little bit larger than that?
I'd
I
go
don't think
11
it
by
would-
17.
That's what I was thinking. I don't think it'd be too bad to have it, a little bit larger. I think it'd be nice. Yeah,
Yeah, I
let's
think
go
11 by
17.
17 would be appropriate. You could get all that really nice little detail in there and have it be nice and super clear.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, we'll do that. Sure.
You just send me the file. Let me do my thing and you'll be happy.
Okay, I trust you. I don't doubt it. I'll do that.
Cool. So we're going to make them like 4 foot wide by like,
You're gonna need a new living room for this, Prince,
you're going to be able to see them from space.
and you'll have to sell your car for it as well.
Well, yeah, but I mean,
Just give
it's
us
to
the
be
pink
expected.
slip. Just give us your title.
Yeah, just sign it
It'll
over.
be okay.
It's okay.
Just
Just
give
sign
it
it
to me.
over.
You give me that car, and I will give you this print. It sounds like a very fair deal.
Maserati and up, of course.
Hmm. Motorcycles are welcome as well.
Yes. Would totally agree.
I haven't ridden my bike for a while. I gotta get back on that thing.
I was going to say, man, time's counting down.
Hmm. Yeah.
Need some more yellow down here.
My PMU cartridges came in the mail today, so I think that's what I'm doing this week. It's just messing with those on fake skin or on my leg or something. I don't know.
Now, what size pins did you get?
I honestly didn't know what to get or what they would feel like that small. So I bought a whole bunch of different ones to try that I thought would be like a variety. Like I got a bullet liner, which is a 1-liner, which is, I think it's just like this no taper basically.
Right, medium taper, probably a
But
0.40 instead of a 0.35.
I don't know. I think it's just almost has no taper though. It's just like they call it a bullet.
Very
It's just
blunt.
a
Isn't it?
single needle. And then I guess there are like, if bug pins are 10 and standard are 12, I bought a whole bunch of 8s and a whole bunch of 6s in like 1, 3, and 5 groupings. And then there's like this little 4 mag or 4 flat. So I don't know, like I'm kind of excited to get to try them all. At the same time, it's like unknown territory.
Yeah, I think what you're going to realize, and this is something, because I tattoo with a lot of 0.25 mags, which are the number 8 bug pins.
Okay.
I really like those for solid color and smooth color saturation. But one thing I have noticed is that sometimes it can almost be too solid where you can't blend it all. But I usually tend to run my machines pretty fast. So I think if I slowed those down, I'd be able to blend a little bit more, like in the skin as opposed to in the tube.
I got you. Yeah, I don't know. There's this temptation, like when I was doing the eyeliner tattoo, to just like 1-line it. You know what I mean? Like that's apparently not even close to what you're supposed to do, and I can't really tell anyone how you're supposed to do it yet. But it just feels very like crazy and kind of like building up. So I don't really know. I don't know. Excited about it though. You said 0.25.
Yeah, I try not to use singles if I don't have to. I would rather go for something like a super crazy tight bug pin 3 or even a 00 bug pin 3 something along that, because the smaller the pin size you go, the tighter the grouping, it'll act like even half of a one. So it'll be even smaller than a single, because most singles that are out there for stability's sake generally tend to be a thicker pin size. So, I mean, unless obviously you're working with PMU, in that case, like if you're working with a 0.25 single, that's like a whole nother realm of like small that I don't know if you could ever really see.
Like I bought a single 0.18. That's small. And I bought a three, what was it? A 3.22 millimeter.
A 0.322?
No, it's a 3 round liner that's 0.22. Yeah, they're all by Peak. I don't know if I'm allowed to say brands.
I think that's, yeah, that's like a number 7, if I'm correct. A number 7 bug pin or a number 7 pin. Yeah, I really got into like needle science for a little while and like just analyzing that and how does that have an effect on different like tattoos and what kind of looks can you get with it.
Going down that rabbit hole as well.
Yeah.
I was obsessed with trying like every size. Like maybe this one will just work better. Or as well.
Yeah, I like to do that kind of an investigation, but I find that every grouping has its own specific purpose, right?
Yeah.
You know, if I'm going through and I'm doing something that's got a little bit more realism, or if I really want to pack in that super solid, super saturated color, but still have some very nice color blends, if I'm doing something that's really, really bold, then I'll actually pull out like a number 8 bug pin to do all of my color with. Just because I know that it's going to be super saturated, super solid. My blends are going to be silky smooth, you know, and it's not going to cause anywhere near as much trauma to the skin.
Which one was that?
That was the 0.25.
Right. Like for me, I basically ordered anything that looked like I wouldn't like mess up somebody's eye with, since I'm just starting to practice. So everything I bought was like soft and small, so I could just kind of, because in the training program, everything was a one liner or a 3. And that's all I used. So.
Yeah, it's so I've often found that the smaller the grouping I go with, the more careful I actually have to be, because you're not gonna, when you go that small with like super tight, super small groupings, you're not really gonna get any kind of skin resistance. You know, because you're not going to get any skin resistance, it's hard to really start to tell how deep you're going, because you can very easily just blow something out pretty quickly if there's literally 0 skin resistance, because that's what we're taught to feel as tattooers. You're taught to feel for that vibration in your stretching hand, which is going to have a direct impact on like how deep you know you're going.
Let me ask you a question. If like, let's say I have the same needle and then I get the same thing with a longer taper, I know that that'll make it smaller, but does it make it flimsier? Because they're kind of, do you know what I mean?
So yes and no. It's not always going to make it a smaller grouping. What it's going to do is space out those individual points on the tip of the grouping a little bit more. But it also depends on the company and how tight they tighten it, right? So for example, if you have a 3 round liner or a 5 round liner medium taper, you can only tighten that to a certain extent before the back end of it balloons out and it becomes unusable, right? Because you're not going to get any capillary action. If you have a 5 round liner long taper, you can tighten that down to a higher degree without having the back flare out too much.
Right.
So, you know, most companies, when they're using long tapers, they'll put them down kind of tight, but not like super tight, because you still want plenty of capillary action. Certain companies that are out there will actually go through and they'll over tighten their long taper groupings. And it, in my opinion, almost becomes unusable at that point. But it doesn't, so where it might appear to be smaller, it's probably just because they were able to tighten it down a little bit more.
Can you explain what the capillaries thing was?
So capillary action is the amount of pigment flow and pigment hold in between each of the pins in the grouping, right? Because you've got, they're based on the law of fluid tension and fluid dynamics. Anytime where you have surfaces that are close enough together for various types of liquid to attach themselves to the side, right? It's going to not only attach itself to the side, but it's going to climb up a little bit. And it's going to fill in all those little gaps in between those pins. That's going to allow all of that pigment in between the pins to be delivered down to the tips as you're working. So it creates better ink flow, better pigment flow, and allows you to get better saturation in the long run. Whereas if you're working with something like a single, granted, most singles that are out there are usually supported by two other pins. So just for stability's sake, because if they literally only had like a single needle soldered to a needle bar, it'd snap, right? It would snap without even thinking twice about it. It would be unusable as far as a practical tattoo needle grouping. So what a lot of people will do is say, these are my tattoo pins, right? We'll go with this guy instead of this guy, just for illustration purposes, right? Do I have a couple others I can throw in here? Yeah. So what a lot of companies will do, if these are your tattoo pins, and let me zoom in a little bit more. Focus. There we go. So if these are your tattoo pins, right? And this is three tattoo pins, right? I don't know how easily you can see it, but there's 3 of these here. What a lot of companies will do when they make a single is they'll actually take 3 pins, but then they're going to kick that one single out a little bit further just for stability's sake, so that way it doesn't snap as you're using it. Because those tattoo pins, believe it or not, are pretty brittle. That's why they're supported with such an amount of solder on like the back end where they get soldered onto the needle bar, or where you have like plastic that's melted down onto them to hold that grouping. But most needle configurations do have some amount of solder just to hold them together. But by doing that, that now has the support of 2 other pins that are soldered down. You're really only working off of a very, 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 very tiny little protrusion, which allows you to get that super crazy itty bitty fine line. Plus, not only that, they usually make the supporting pins a little bit thinner than the actual single that you're using. If you look at, a lot of different singles, granted, you're using PMU, so the rules are a little bit different. But a lot of like standard tattoo needles, if you buy a single, this one that's protruding is actually going to be a much thicker diameter. Probably going to look something more like this by comparison. It's going to be a much thicker diameter, but it's also going to have a longer taper, but you're only going to work off of just the bare tip of it, right? Because you only have to go into the skin yay far, before you start blowing things out. So by doing that, it allows it to have a little bit more stability. Now it begs the question, if you have a whole bunch of single like 0.18s, right? And if you have a standard number 12, long taper single, that standard number 12 long taper single is going to be far less brittle. It's going to have a lot more bend in it, a lot more flex than that 0.18, which is literally going to be like the width of a hair. Right. And think about how easy it is to take a piece of hair, right, and just like pull it, snap it, do whatever you want to with it.
Okay, so
I would say be careful with that.
Yeah, that's good to know. I'm glad I asked.
Yeah, it's something that in my studies and in my travels and the
Yeah.
tattoo world, it's something that I've come across that I was like, oh, didn't know that.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna try and do like a really small tattoo somewhere other than the face.
Yeah, I
Like,
think you'd
you
be
know what I mean?
surprised at how small some of those like PMU like groupings are. By comparison, a standard 3-round liner that's a 0.25 is going to be roughly the equivalent of a standard single liner that's made for, standard tattooing.
I know this stuff's small. So
It's microscopic.
I didn't go too small though. I don't think. Like I've got some that are 0.35, some that are 0.30, 0.25. I just bought a variety to see what they all feel like.
Right? Figure out
Just
which ones you like and which ones work best for you.
I just want to like get a feel for them. Yeah.
And that's ultimately what's going to matter, right?
Yeah.
Because we all have different preferences. I know guys that do super fine line black and gray work that are using number 12 medium tapers, right? They're not using bug pins, which is what most people use if they're doing realistic black and gray. They've just developed their technique to go through and use a standard number 12. It's what they find works best for them. People like Bob Tyrell out there might use a 0.25 or a number 8 bug pin 9 mag, which is the equivalent of a standard 5 mag for everything, right? So depending on what works best for you to achieve the actual product that you're looking to achieve, that's what you really want to focus on. Is it going to do what you want it to do? Does it feel right when you use it? And if it feels right when you use it, is it going to achieve the desired outcome of the look that you're trying to achieve? And different things work for different people. Everyone's a little bit different when it comes down to that. So what works for you may not work for other people, and what works for other people may not work for you.
Each change that you make is significant. You know what I mean? Like it's enough to at least to throw me off. Like I just tried it was a standard 15 mag, but it was super long taper. So that actually made it like smaller and more concentrated, and it's like completely different. It's so different from any of the other ones that I've ever tried that are much more loose. It's just like it goes right in, but at the same time, it's like almost too intense.
Right.
Like a tight mag for packing and stuff like that. So it's just like there's so many options.
There are, and I think it can be really overwhelming for a lot of people because we do have a lot of choices now that most artists never had back in the day. But I do also believe that there's a standardized middle of the road where, especially if you're just getting into it, you want to maintain consistency, right? And then you want to start to deviate and go left or right from that good middle of the road way to do it.
I think like maybe 2 or 3 months ago, I've been bouncing back and forth between standard and bug pin liners, like my whole career. And I finally just said, I'm just going to do bug pins from now on. And my lines are getting much more consistent just because it's the same one every time.
Yep.
Versus just that one change. So I'm trying to limit my choices a little bit just until I get the level of consistency that I want for my work.
Absolutely. And that's what consistency does, is it helps us regulate things so that we can focus on technique and we can focus on, quality of product. When you're constantly changing things, whether it's your machine, whether it's your needle grouping or needle sizes or whatever, your pigment companies, when you're constantly changing things like that, it's going to lead to inconsistency because you're literally constantly changing a variable, and until you can control all of those variables, you can't really start to regulate the type and quality of work that you put out.
definitely agree. I learned that the hard way.
Didn't we all?
The Zion, the give bar in the middle, I changed that thing like every tattoo for a while, trying to find a sweet spot. And the sweet spot was just don't move it.
Yeah. Yeah. Just learn how to use it the way it is.
Exactly.
You know, so Tony Urbanek, master machine builder and like super awesome dude, recently did a Q&A, a machine Q&A, where I actually posed that question, right? I posed the question like, when you get a machine, a new machine, should you A, learn how to use the machine the way that it is? Because, you know, obviously you buy a machine from a trusted source, you know that a lot of people out there are using them. You know that whoever the machine builder is has put it through rigorous quality checks and, you know, sometimes even done some tattoos with it to make sure that it's up to par, you know, for their own quality assurance. Should you go through and learn how to use it as is, or should you adjust it to the way that you work?
Gotcha. Yeah.
Right? Because there's two different schools of thought on that. And I know guys that have turned around, they would buy a brand new coil machine from, say, Gus in Japan, or from Aaron Kane, or Carl Hedgepath, or whoever. And the first thing they would do is mess with it. The first thing they would do is bend the springs and, yeah, like basically get it, and they would completely rebuild it.
Right.
And it's like, but you haven't even used it yet. And if you haven't even used it yet, how do you know that it wasn't set up exactly the way that it needed to be?
I think that's like I can see all the tattoo artists that I work with just getting a new machine immediately, taking it out of the box, taking it apart, taking the parts down.
Yeah, it's like, don't do that. They built that way for a fucking reason. Do not mess with it. Granted, this is my philosophy, right? You've got guys that are out there, guys like Tony Urbanek, right? He has been building machines for decades. This dude has spent his entire life perfecting the building of a tattoo machine from scratch, tuning it, the whole nine. And he can tell you if something's off just by listening to it. Not only can he tell you if it's off by listening to it, he can tell you it's off by listening to it over video conference. That is talent. That is pure, unadulterated talent.
And experience.
Right?
Yeah.
When you have someone like that that builds a machine, don't mess with it. It's built that way for a reason.
Me and the guy I work with, Jay, we were talking about the other day. Because when I went cartridge, I was running Bishop V6s for like 8 years. And then I switched to the Zion. And I finally just caved and bought a Bishop wand like a month ago. And I told him that I felt like I was coming home. Like finally, after a year of struggling, I finally just, like the second I turned it on and started using it, I was like, thank God. Like, this is just what I know. He was talking about, he runs a CNC, which is like a inexpensive like Dragon Hawk. And I finally caved and bought one of those just because you recommended it. And it's definitely awesome. But there's always that one machine that just feels like where I want to be. I don't know if you have like a favorite machine or like that one brand or whatever that.
So I do have a favorite machine. In fact, and I hate to be that guy, but I have lots of favorite machines.
Yeah.
And you know, I'll tell you exactly which ones they are right now. They're the ones that work. Okay. Those are my favorite machines, the ones that work. And the reason why I say that is because after a while, and I don't know about you, but I know I got to this point where it didn't really matter what machine I was using anymore. If I wanted to achieve a certain effect, I figured out a way to adjust myself to that machine to achieve that desired effect. Right. So if I wanted to go through and run a Neotat or a Bishop V6, I can do thin lines. I can do big lines. I can do 15 mag, 35 mag. I can do 5 mag. I can do color, I can do fine black and gray. You figure out a way to use it to achieve what you want to do. And a lot of that has to do with feel, right? Can you feel it? Do you know how this feels in your hand when you're pulling that perfect, clean, smooth line? You know, do you know how it feels in your hand when you know you've got perfect color saturation? Do you know how to use it in your hand if you're trying to achieve a very smooth black and gray blend, right? And so what I found, because I recently set up a couple of coils that I have, like my 2 daily runner coils that I used to use way back when, that I've had for most of my career. One of them I've had for my entire career, that have been taken apart and rebuilt several times. That's why I kind of chose those. I even wound the coils on them myself. So like I know that they're pretty awesome. And I went through and I got those set up to use cartridges with, because I had a client specifically request that I use coil machines on them. And I was like, I only use cartridges. So how am I going to get this to work? Right. Well, I figured out a way to get it to work, you know, and I'm using a click grip with it, you know, disposable plunger bar, standard rubber nipple, you know, bagging everything and making sure everything's nice and clean and all that stuff. But tuning the machine to get it to push a cartridge, that was a nightmare. That was an absolute, the membranes on cartridges are so stiff, it requires so much more downward force, but you figure out a way to go through, tune the machine to get it to have that kind of downward force to use for that specific application. You know, could I have easily whipped out a Neotat and done the same tattoo with a Neotat? Yeah, and I probably would have had it done in a quarter of the time. You know, I could have used my Zion. I could have used my FK Irons EXO. I could have used, you know, a Bishop V6 or a Microangelo, or name a machine. I could have used it to achieve that desired effect by adjusting my technique to those machines.
But I guess what I'm saying is there could be a machine where when you put it in your hand and start using it, you don't have to make any adjustments.
Right.
Like you can just get it in. You just everything just works like the way that you want it to.
I found that mostly happens, in my opinion, with rotaries because there's no adjustments needed. There's not really a whole lot of parts that are going to wear out on them.
Yeah,
you know,
my boss just got one of the ones that you can change the stroke kind of while you're working.
I think those are the Access Valhalla.
Yeah. You just got the Valkyrie, I think, or the Valhalla, one of them. But again, that's that temptation for me to mess with it. Like instead of making a minor adjustment to myself, I just click it, and then I'm like even further off than I wanted to be, or that I would have been if I just tried to do it myself.
You know, and I'll be the first one to admit I am 100% guilty of that. I used to buy machines that you could put on different cams, different torsion bars. And I mean, you can set it up any way you want to. And I did. And I got 2 of them and they were both set up completely different for every single tattoo. And there was no consistency.
Yeah, that was a hard lesson for me. Like it took me months and months with the Zion to finally just be like, just leave it alone.
Yep.
Like,
when you leave it alone and you just let it do its thing and you learn to adjust your hand speed or your hand pressure, you know, the amount of control that you have or your technique to that machine, then, you know, once you learn that lesson, which I mean, you've learned, I've learned, a lot of other experienced tattooers have learned, when you learn to just leave it be and adjust yourself to it, makes any kind of machine that you could ever want to use, you know, just, it's not difficult because you're like, oh, I need to slow my hand down. Oh, I need to kick my machine back at more of an angle and have more needle hang. You know, oh, I know how to go through and manipulate my technique. So it doesn't really matter. But you're right. There's always those machines that we have. For me, it's the Inkjet. I'm guilty, right?
Okay.
And it doesn't matter what cam I have on it, but the way that it runs and the consistency of it has just been like one of those. All right, well, I know I need to nail this tattoo 100%. Like maybe the person's moving across the country and I'm never going to see him again, but I know that they plan on getting more tattoos. And I want whoever sees the work that I did on them to be like, oh yeah, good fucking work, right? So I want to make a good impression. So I'm going to reach for that Injecta instead of my Zion or my EXO or whatever, right? Because I know exactly the way it's going to move, know exactly what voltage to run it at. I know exactly how I need to move my hand. I know exactly how it's going to hit every time. But it also comes from using it with the same setup for years.
That's for me, it was 8 years, my entire career. I used coils for like 6 months, but I got tired of messing with them.
Yeah.
So I just went with, and I used, and I don't know, I don't know why I switched from Bishop, but I'm finding it's actually as long as they have, like, I don't know 100% how they work, but like a brushless motor, like the Fall Burn or whatever.
Fall Harbor. Yeah.
Yeah. There's other companies, like, I think the Hawk has one maybe. And I think, I can't remember if Pete does, and CNC, they're all that same kind of motor. And I find if I stick within that family, I'm usually pretty happy. I don't have to adjust. So I think it could be the style of the motor or just how it's built.
It could, and that can have a lot to do with it. The amount of torque that those motors put out, the voltage that you have to run them at, a lot of that has to do with, the way that affects our tattoos. If we get used to working in a certain voltage and having that machine run at a certain speed, technically speaking, we can pick up any machine using the same kind of motor, run it in the same kind of voltage with the same kind of torque, no matter what the body style is. Because that motor is going to turn at so many RPMs, it's going to hit with a certain amount of force. And that means that regardless of what it looks like, we know exactly the way that it's going to run. Now, different motors have different torsion settings, different voltage options. It's got different stuff like that in them to allow them to work harder, work faster, run at different speeds. But usually if you find a motor that you like, that works, yeah, it doesn't matter what machine you get, as long as it's got that kind of a motor, you're good.
I found that makes more of a difference than like if I buy 3 machines that are all the same stroke or something like that, and I run them all, they'll still feel really different versus same motor. They tend to be consistent. So I don't know. But to me, that's becoming the most important thing. I'm kind of trying to stick with that for a while now that I
Yeah. So, I mean,
went away from the time.
stroke length is important to an extent. Once again, this is all personal opinion here, but I think stroke length is important to extent. But I think you hit the nail on the head. I think the motor that's in that machine is going to be far more important than the length of stroke of the machine, right? Perfect example. Look at the Injecta and look at the Zion. The Injecta, in my opinion, I've seen people run them around 8.5, anywhere from 8 to like 16 volts. Okay. That is a huge power band. Huge, right? You're talking literally 8 full volts worth of adjustment.
That's a lot.
Right. Look at the Zion, both of which have the same default cam, 3.25 millimeter stroke. They have the same type of default cam. Well, same default cam stroke length. Sorry, they don't have the same type of cam, but the same stroke length.
Injecta you're comparing?
Right.
Okay. Yeah.
So Zion's 3.25, Injecta comes with a 3.25 cam off the bat.
Right.
Look at the motor on the Zion. Runs way lower voltage. Doesn't have quite, because it runs at a lower voltage, it's not going to have quite the same wide power band. Right? Because those start moving at around what, 4.5? you know, and then go up to an absolute maximum rating of 9.5. Right. So that's only 5 volts worth of power band, you know, compared to the 8 volts that an Injecta has. But I've also run an Injecta down at like 6 volts. So it's got a huge power band.
I was talking about one of the guys I work with about the more give that you put on a machine, it's kind of like the wider like the pressure sweet spot is. Does that make sense? Like you have to press down harder. So whereas if you run like the Zion with no give, you have like just barely any room to kind of have pressure to deal with to get different effects. Whereas when you turn the give all the way up, like the range of pressure that you have to do to get these. And so like for black and gray and stuff, it's like it's less difficult to hit that sweet spot on a high give machine. And it's also less pressure to like overdo it, kind of a deal. So I've been trying to stick with more give.
See, I think a lot of that comes down to your personal technique, right?
I was mostly talking about just the range, pressure range.
Pressure range can be very different, right? Because it doesn't take a whole lot of pressure to actually get the super sharp points of pins to penetrate that top layer of skin, right? It doesn't take a whole lot. Those pins are sharp. They're really, really razor sharp. It doesn't, you can take one, hold it 6 inches above your hand, drop it, and it'll go into your skin. It might not go that far, but you know, a regular needle on bar, hold it 6 inches up and drop it onto your hand. See if it doesn't go through that top couple of little layers of skin. And that's it, a 6-inch drop with 0 force, right? They're sharp. You don't need a whole lot to have them go through. You know, I prefer my machines without any give because I like to regulate my needle depth and my technique based on my hand pressure alone. So for me, I feel like I have more control over that because I usually tend to run my machines either with a whole bunch of needle hang, working barely off the tips of them and literally just like lightly brushing it in. Or if it's something where I'm just like plowing a huge field of color in, minimal needle hang, kick that thing back and just plow away. But I want it to hit consistently every time. Right? I want that when I know that those pins are coming down, I want that to be consistent every time. I don't want to have to go through and try to find that sweet spot. I want to be able to go through and control how that's coming down and know that it's coming down in the exact same way every time. So that way I can adjust the technique of my hand to the tattoo that I'm doing. I mean, that's once again, just the way that I go about doing things. You know, I think you're right. You do have a lot more pressure variance off of a machine with a lot more give, where you don't have to be quite as accurate because it's going to bounce a little bit. You're going to have a cushion there.
Yeah.
You know, but I mean, for me, I would rather not have that and just go through and say, okay, well, I know that I had too much needle hang. Cool, fine, easy enough. I'll just back that off a little bit and I'm good. You know, but a lot of that comes down to, can you feel it in your stretching hand?
There's about both me and the guy that are using the high give machines. We both have like a more impressionistic than precise style. You still have to be precise even with the impressionism type stuff with tattoos, but I find it lends itself more to, it's like
more expressive or aggressive strokes,
more just less, I have less control. It forces me a little bit to kind of like not to try to be quite as precise. Like whereas if I run something with no give, I might be like super concentrated, hyper concentrated on on what I'm doing, and I can get that control, and I can make these perfect subtle little variances and needle depth, and everything I do with my hand is going to be mimicked or affect the skin. But it's like painting with a larger brush, like running a high give machine. It's hard for me to get that precise. So it forces me to kind of be a little bit less me, I don't know, be like just a little bit more free, like a little bit more kind of like, I don't know, the only way I can describe it is like if I paint with a large brush, it's going to force me to make kind of broader strokes and to kind of make decisions that are a little less meticulous. And it feels more like I'm painting, or more like I'm using a medium that's a little bit more free. And tattooing is so precise already, and my personality is precise and meticulous and everything. So, but I've always pushed myself towards impressionism just for fun, basically, just because I like perfect little pencil and meticulous drawings where you see every detail are kind of like, it's what not necessarily the easiest for me, but that's like, I guess that is it. It's just like that kind of stuff comes naturally to me.
Okay.
But doing impressionistic shapes, or like with Ricardo, where he does the blurry image, or he's doing the kind of rough value sketches, like I'm always trying to push myself away from like perfect type realism and into more, I guess, expressive, like you said, styles.
Right on.
But I in general, I don't like any medium that I can't control.
Right. Well, I mean, because you're trying to achieve a very specific objective.
I'm a control freak when it comes to the artistic mediums. Like even like something like pouring, I've never tried because it just looks so uncontrollable.
Chaotic.
Yeah.
Oh, it is, because you literally don't have a control over the outcome of it.
That's why, yeah, I tend to like something, but lots of people think they're more fun, but I just find it, I guess, more frustrating because I don't know.
You're like me. You're like, no, I want this kind of a look.
Exactly. It's that high precision, but you can get too deep in it. You can I can be on a flower petal for like an hour with a one-liner and then be like, what am I doing?
Yeah.
Like that pedal, I just spent an hour on that pedal, and then all the rest I spent like 15 minutes. And that one's gonna look a little weird, but I try not to, I don't know, I guess it's just a little bit more free when I use the high dip and the larger needle sizes.
Well, it does allow for a wider range of, I mean, for lack of a better term, I mean, I can't really think of anything besides this term, but it does allow for a little bit of a wider margin of error, if that makes any sense. Where like maybe you do press a little bit too hard, or you want to go for more of an expressive stroke that doesn't have to be perfect, right?
Correct.
That's where I would use something along that line where you're just blocking it in, you're roughing it in. It doesn't really matter, right? You're working very, very light, thin washes, and you're building it up from there.
Maybe
right?
like a loose feeling almost.
Right. There we go.
You know what
That
I mean?
works.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, it gives it a very, very loose, very expressive kind of feel to what you can do. And it is. That's exactly the way that it feels to me. However, when I'm going into a tattoo, I'm usually trying to achieve a desired outcome. So I prefer to have that precision, right? Because I know for a fact, I want this to look like this. I want that to look like that. I want this to be over here. I want this to be over here. And I know I want this value here, this color here. This is going to be a solid field, and this is going to be a fade, right? I have it all broken down before I ever lay ink to skin.
That's like me with my 9 references.
Exactly. Exactly.
Nobody else
right?
says it.
I know exactly what kind of a desired outcome I want. So for me, it's all about choosing a method, technique, and machine that's going to allow me to achieve that kind of a desired outcome. You know,
Well,
other
one thing,
people like to paint on skin, and that's awesome. That's not the way my mind works though. So
say something that I forget.
yeah, I just realized what time it was too. So I'm
Yeah.
probably going to be getting off of here in just a few minutes.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I got stuff to do as well.
Yeah, I have to adult today. I'm not looking forward to it.
I'm trying to take a non-tattoo day. It's one day where I don't obsess over tattooing. Which is what I was gonna
I don't
paint.
know what that's like.
I don't either, but
I've heard it's weird
yeah,
because like, when you dedicate so many years of your life to studying it and researching it and literally obsessing about it, I can't say that I know what it's like to go through a day without thinking about tattoos. I don't. Like everything that is in my life in one way, shape, or form is revolved or in some type of way related to tattoos, tattooing, or art in general. Like that's just who I am. Then again, I have no life. So like my vacations are going to tattoo conventions in other countries. Like I don't, people are like, I want to go sit on a beach and drink margaritas. It's like, go have fun. I'm going to the tattoo convention.
The thing I was going to say before was sometimes when to make a tattoo look like sketched and not perfect and impressionistic, almost like another medium.
You have to
It's
have a much softer hit.
Just in general, it's still meticulous, like, to give it in a way. Like if I'm trying to paint like or tattoo like a brush stroke that's like nice and free and flowing, I have to get in there and kind of like do every single little detail by hand. You know what I mean? Like drawing watercolor with a tattoo machine versus just doing a brush stroke. Or like when people do like sketched line, it's really hard to just make it not look like I just effed up the tattoo royally by doing all the. That's so hard to do because you still got to go in there and F it up every little, like make it look like, purposely.
So you want me to just not do a good tattoo? Okay, got it. Right? Because that's.
I had to do when I have to do handwriting tattoos. I really like doing them, but like versus script versus somebody just wrote something and it's like or kid wrote it or it's all like when you can't connect the E, you gotta like mess it up. It's so hard for me to do.
So I find that a lot of what I do in those cases is pressure variance. So once again, I like to use a much stiffer hitting machine. And I will, so for those like little ligatures where you can, if you really zoom in on it, you can really see where someone lifted the pen up or the pencil up and really kind of faded out a line. Say they're coming off of the E at the end of a word. You can actually see how it just barely gets lighter and lighter and lighter and lighter into nothing. I'll actually go through and use that same kind of a technique and I'll set my machine kind of shallow. Unless it's like super small. In that case, I've got a lot of needle hang and I'm like, where's my electron microscope? Right. But I'll use pressure variance to create that kind of a fade effect, which you can't, I haven't been able to find a way to do that with a very soft machine, but maybe I just haven't tried. So
I think mostly, I mean, like I'm so used to doing script and trying to make it look more or less perfect, like make it look like the script and make it look good, to purposely mess up the lettering and like make the E's not connect and like have this part kind of go over like that. It's just the whole time I'm doing it, my brain's like, fix it.
Yeah. Yeah. It drives your OCD nuts.
Yeah, I can't do it. They're fun to do, but at the same time, it's hard.
Oh, it's very difficult, especially when, as you mentioned, we're in the mindset of, okay, well, this needs to be perfect. These E's need to be perfectly symmetrical, the same curve, the same slope, same shape. You're right. It messes with you. It messes with you a lot.
I tried to
but that's kind of the nature of the beast sometimes.
I did a couple skull. It was like I had to do the whole thing with the 15 curve mag, like just give it like a really impressionistic, like loose feeling. And it was hard.
Yeah.
That was years ago though. Like I ended up having to go back and basically clean the whole thing up because it just looked like I did a terrible tattoo, but it was actually me trying to.
Yeah. Create that kind of an impressionistic kind of
Yeah. Like it's hard
almost
to get that across in tattoo art.
almost like an impasto kind of feel. It's like trying to tattoo anything that Van Gogh painted, right? It's like, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you
Well,
think
why don't we go ahead?
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, why don't we go ahead and we'll start doing some sign-offs because I have to adult in a little bit.
Okay.
And I'm not a big fan of that, but let me spotlight you.
Okay.
And we'll go through and do a couple of sign-offs and we'll be done. Let's see. Don't know if that did it right. No. Well, I mean, there's only 2 of us in here. So what I'll do is this. That should kick over. Waiting for the delay in the video feed. All right, go ahead.
My name's Faith Wynn, and you can check me out at my website. It's wynncolor.com. And then my Instagram is going to be WynnColor, WYNNCOLOR.
Awesome. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Absolutely.
It's always great to have you on here. I always like the discussions we get into. It's always enlightening. And yeah, so for, oh, let me switch my camera back. Turn that off, switch that over. And yeah, cool. So for those of you that don't know me, my name is Jason Leeser. I host the Sunday afternoon drawing groups for the Reinventing the Tattoo community. You can find me on here every Sunday at 1 p.m. I'm always welcoming new people to join in. If you ever have any topics you want us to go over or any discussion ideas, anything, any questions you might have or anything like that, by all means, let us know. You can reach me at Philly Inc. on Instagram as well. Please go through, if you enjoyed today's episode, like, comment, and share it out to other people. We're always trying to get more exposure on here and really try to bring a little bit more of a presence to everything that we're doing here at the Reinventing the Tattoo community. Faith, once again, wanted to say thank you again. It's always a pleasure to have you on here. And yeah, until tomorrow morning at 9. Well, don't forget to catch tonight's Tattoo Weekly at 9 p.m. Gabe Ripley, Jake Meeks from the Fireside Tattoo Network, and Lauren Gregory. And then we'll be beaming out again tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. So until then, thank you very much. Hope everyone has a wonderful evening, and I will catch up with everyone tomorrow. So, cheers. Yay. Now switch back to gallery. Yay.